In this video, we explain the networking aspects of the automation engine. We want to outline the ports on which each process is accessed and by whom. Note that we won't cover the entire Automic automation instance, which is much larger in scope. Our focus will be on AE. Then there are two aspects we have to cover: cold starts and server roles. First, let's briefly go over the default ports which are configured in ucsrv.ini. We'll recap what we explained in other videos. The primary work process is responsible for certain core workload functions and coordination of other WPs. By default, it's assigned the 2270 port in the TCP/IP section using setting PWP ports. Work processes and dialog processes are not contacted by other components and therefore have no assigned ports. Their activities are synchronized by the PWP. All other processes are configured in the port section. You can have multiple CPs, and the default port range starts at 2217 in the cp.port setting. JCPs and JWPs have ports which by default are assigned randomly based on availability. You can still set them using jcp.ports, and JWP ports can be set with jwp.sync.ports for incoming connections from WPs. Let's consider how processes are networked. We start with the two core sets of processes. In our case, we have 2 CPs and 5 WPs. The first WP we enable becomes the PWP, and the others regular WPs. We opt to change 2 of these to dialog work processes. WPs and DWPs communicate with the PWP over port 2270. They also communicate with the CPs over ports 2217, 2218, and so forth. Constant communications exist between the CPs and PWP over the respective ports. To this, we add JCP and JWP and their randomly assigned ports. PWP and CP communicate with both, and they communicate with each other. Everyone talks to the database over ODBC. Finally, the CPs orchestrate communications with external components like the agents, but also AWI, Call API, and the REST API communicates with the JCP over port 8088. We've already explained that WPs assume certain responsibilities, either WP, PWP, or DWP. But a standard WP can also have a server role or no role. The O server role stands for outputs. It handles log messages in the database and stores other things like ERP activation reports. R stands for resource calculations. This WP does a number of things in live operations. It will check the status of sync objects, perform the calculations associated with calendar definitions and maximum parallel executions, and manage console and file type events. When the system is initially started, the PWP is assigned both O and R roles. As the instance grows and you add WPs, server roles will be distributed to the new WPs. There is only one WP with the O role and one with the R role. We briefly mentioned this in another video. No PWP or server role WP can be given dialog responsibilities. When you right-click on the server role WP, you cannot see the server mode function. The standard approach to starting the system is the warm start. This means that the system will simply pick up where it left off. Existing processing requirements are accounted for and simply resume. This being said, there are rare instances when a cold start should happen. This clears message queue tables used by the processes. We typically recommend them after an update of the binaries in database. It will prevent active tasks from resuming, which can lead to bad behaviors. We do not recommend performing a cold stop on your own on a production system, because in certain cases it can cause jobs in an active state to become inconsistent, which will generate a large amount of cleanup activity. To execute a cold start, you simply run it from the service manager or update the ini file and set start mode equals cold. Once the cold start is performed, the setting reverts to normal automatically.